Welcome to the first look and welcome to Wizard of Legends. You'll have to excuse the coughing and whatnot, my voice is very sore today, but I absolutely wanted to do this episode of the first look at Wizard of Legends. This is by far my first look, but far from my first look at Wizard of Legends, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the options menu as always. Various resolutions, it's kind of bare bones here, no graphic options. Obvious reasons, it's a pixelated indie game, it's pretty easy to run. Full screen, on, off, no windowed, brightness, VSync, system cursor. There's camera shake on and off, which is what you're seeing now with it on. I'm going to turn it off so you can see the difference. The audio, music, FX slider, SFX sliders actually make noise when you're turning them down. You can change the size of minimap so much so that it actually completely gets rid of it. You can turn damage numbers on and off, like I said, camera shake on and off. And you can change the different types of controller buttons depending on which controller you're using, Xbox, PlayStation, or it even has support for the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. And then of course it has different languages here. Key configurations, rebindables is a little skimpy, so you just have one keybind for everything, that's it, no secondary keybind. You cannot rebind anything for controller. And this is actually a little frustrating because I don't like my 5th and 6th spell being on LB and RB for my Xbox controller. I like it being on RT and LT. So there's 3 main collectible components in Wizard of Legend. There's your cloaks, which have various different effects, ranging from increased crit, evade chance, cooldown, run speed, increased damage, all the way to things like a lot of increased damage, cooldowns, and run speed, but decreased health. You can see with the Venture Cape, my health is 300, and standardly your health is 500. So there's a lot of different things you can do with just capes, but capes is not where it stops. And there's actually a damage difference. If you watch, you can see that I think it's about, it's either 2 to 3 points with the damage difference there. This is Mimi. She has all of your relics. You're only allowed to carry 1 relic in with you, but you can pick up as many relics as you can find while you're inside the Trials of Chaos. And these relics do all kinds of stuff, like increased gold gains for wizards, the increased cooldown, increased knockback effect. You have little sprites that follow you around and attack enemies. Doesn't consume supers when using it, hold supercharge, increase lightning damage, max health, crit chance, drop. I mean, like, there's a crazy amount, and they categorize them into defense, offense, and miscellaneous. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with it. Lastly, the third thing you're collecting are your spells. You have 4 types of spells. You have a basic, which is it's one you're going to use probably the most. It's just your basic straightforward attack. You have a dash, which is you have a dash no matter what, but your dash ability alters what your dash can do. You have a standard. Your standard is kind of like your bread and butter. It's what you're going to use most consistently for damage, usually, although rolls can vary wildly with all kinds of different magic. There's even a confuse spell in here, where you actually can make enemies fight against each other. And then you have your signature. Your signature tends to be your bigger damage item. It's kind of like your standard is used to set them up, or your standard's used for CC, or your standard's used for certain situational damage, but when you're really wanting to hit something really hard, you use your signature ability. And below my health, the big red bar, you'll see a blue bar that'll occasionally fill up. When that fills up, I have super. And my super is a amped up version of my signature, so it has increased magical effects, which you'll see, and it has increased damage. This is the main square for the Trials of Chaos. Whenever you come here, you'll collect Chaos Gems, which is the purple gems down in the middle of the screen on the bottom. You collect them by going through the Trials of Chaos. So it's a roguelite in the sense that you continuously collect things to change how they help you throughout the game. Some stuff is definitely better than others. What I'm taking with me today into the Trials of Chaos is mostly just for demonstration purposes. These two people right here, you can change some aspects. So she'll give you a starting amount of gold for chaos gems, which is pretty nice, and he'll change what boss you run into first. Now, as you can see here on this progress screen here, there's 3 bosses. There's Zeal, Freya, and Atlas. All 3 of them have different movesets, and depending on where they're at, the further along in the dungeon run that they are, the more mechanics that they have. So the further you go, the harder the bosses get. They'll be different the further you go, and they'll have different mechanics and different moves, and some of them get really hard. 59 runs and I've not beat the game yet. I've gotten so close about 5 or 6 times. I'll have a run beaten probably in like the next 10 to 15 attempts, I would say. I would hope. There's a super I just cast right there using the ice shiv, so it had an additional effect where it spread back and forth multiple times, does extra damage, and freezes multiple people. The build that I'm running today is a little bit of a safer build. I have a lot more fun builds. There's so many spells that the kind of builds you can create are insane. They're crazy in terms of what kind of CC and damage potential you want. But this is a safer build, obviously, to at least show you guys the first boss. Now this is Taffy. He's one of the random things that will show up in a level. He's a pinata that basically you have to do so much damage to in a certain amount of time in order to break him open. And once you break him open, he'll have unique things inside of him. Gems, money, gold inside the dungeon, maybe an extra spell. And in this case, he did in fact have an extra spell. Line shock agent. This summons 2 little guys that follow me around and shock anything that get near me. Now, chaos gems are persistent. They last through the dungeon. Gold is only relevant to the dungeon. So if I die in this run, all the gold that I have will go away. And I have to earn new gold at the start of every run. Which is why that lady outside that gives you 200 gold can actually be a pretty powerful thing, because you start with money. And you can immediately come in here, buy a few items, and potentially have a very powerful setup from the very first level. Now, levels are broken down like this. You have 3 levels total, and then each level has 3 sections. So currently we're on level 1-1. We'll go to level 1-2, and then the boss is level 1-3. Now here at the end, there's a boss that you'll fight. It's like a mini boss before you actually fight the level boss. It's basically just a section boss, and there's one for each section, obviously, and then there's the main bosses. They generally give you stuff to try to help you out here, to make things a little easier. Some of them can be really hard as the regular bosses, and in some cases harder later on in the game, depending on what you get. There's about 5 or 6 section bosses you can get, and there's 3 or 4 I really hate, but some of them aren't so bad. Now the relic I went in with today is a map. It allows me to see basically all the major points. So on every single section there is a items vendor, or a relic vendor. There's an arcana vendor, which we're gonna see all 3 of them here in a minute. But there's a item vendor, an arcana vendor, and then there's a random third objective. And this random third objective can be cursed items. It can be someone that'll exchange your arcana for something unique, and that can vary. Or it can be somebody that'll upgrade your cloak. Or it can be that pinata. And sometimes cursed items aren't so bad. Sometimes they're really good. There can be, well, you'll see when we get to them. I believe there is one on level 2, section 1, which I show towards the end here. Now this is the Arcana vendor. He'll have spells that you can buy. You can hold up to 6 spells, and then spells can be enhanced. So all spells have a basic effect, but there are spells that have enhanced effects, and these enhanced effects do additional things. Obviously, you can get them inside the dungeon. You can get items that give you enhanced effects, or you can find actual enhanced spells themselves. Now, to note, spells that you get off of bosses, you keep. But spells that you get inside of the dungeon, you don't keep. Items that you get inside of the dungeon, you don't keep. I have not gotten an item off a boss yet, so after 59 runs, I'd kind of assume you don't. So who knows? But you know, spells off of bosses, like I said, you do keep from game to game. Now, I do have some gripes with this game. I really like it. I've played a lot of it. For a $15 indie game, it was 100% worth it. Ooh, Razu's favorite hat. I know what this does. I'm not going to tell you what it does, because, yeah. But, it's very unique. Inside the dungeon, it doesn't tell you what any of the items do, so it's very kind of Binding of Isaac's like that. This is the regular vendor. He sells items, and he always sells one health potion. Now, we're not going to grab the health potion right now, even though I'm actually doing pretty bad on this run. Normally, I would grab the health potion at this point with that low health, but we're not going to this time. So, yeah, after you defeat the first boss, you can, or first section mini-boss, you have portals that go to the Arcana vendor, the potions vendor, back to the start, and the random third objective. This is a unique chest. It requires, you see the elements on front, water and lightning. It requires to be hit by a spell of each in order to open. So, back to my complaints. With a controller, this game, it's easier to play with a controller, and you can play it with a keyboard, and reasonably so, but with a controller, there's a lot of inaccurateness to it. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a system with a controller, because controllers are just not as accurate as keyboard and mouse. Playing both for a really long time, that's just a fact. There's nothing to really like. It's not omnidirectional. It's not 8-directional, or not omnidirectional. It's not 8-directional. It's omnidirectional. So there's like, I think there's 16 points of looking, not just 8, like up, down, left, right, and then the diagonals in between. There's like 16 points, or no, it's 32 or whatever. This is a cursed vendor. So he has items that have really positive effects, but also really negative effects. So risk versus reward, and that's really fun stuff. So yeah, the controller, there could be a little bit better support in terms of how it guides you when you're dashing. I wish that when you were out of combat, when you're sprinting, so you see that little pop that happens behind my character, and then I'm sprinting, I'm running faster. I wish that your dash didn't consume your ability when you're running, because if you're just trying to traverse across the map quickly, it slows you down and stops your sprint every single time, and that's really annoying, actually. There's hit stun in this game, and you'll see some scenarios of it here, especially with some bosses, where, I don't know if you see it on this guy or not. Oh, you do. You do a little bit, with some of these, black, just running around guys, this little black thrall or whatever. The hit stun's really annoying. It's excessively annoying sometimes. In fact, there are situations that you get into that it is impossible to get out of, because you're just going to get hit stunned to death. But then again, you can also melt bosses like that really quickly when you have a good setup. I'm going to run around and probably clear a couple more of these rooms, and then I will show you not the first boss, they're in random order every single time, but I'll show you one of the bosses, Zeal, on the lowest difficulty. Not really a huge spoiler for you, honestly. She is probably the boss I do the worst with. She has some abilities that are tracking and follow you constantly. That being said, Atlas also has a tracking ability, but 2 tracking abilities. Yeah, but she's pretty easy. Most bosses are pretty easy on the first level. But later levels they get additional mechanics and additional movesets, and they can get pretty rough, man. So yeah, the hit stun, sometimes I think it's just way too much in this game. Like, it is a little unfair. And you know, I'm okay with games having some unfair mechanics if you can work past them, but man, when you get hit stunned, it's just like, go fuck yourself. There's some scenarios that it's so bad. It's really frustrating. And I just wish, like, maybe they'd look at reducing it a little bit, because hit stun will also push you. So you can get pushed off into ledges, and then it'll try to put you back on the ledge, but I've had scenarios where I get hit stunned and pushed back into the ledge over and over and over and over and over and over, and died from it, and it's super annoying. So yeah, I got a spell from her, and I also got additional Chaos Gems, and that ramps up. Now, that was Zeal. She's the fire-based boss. Freya is the ice-based boss, and then Atlas is the earth-based boss. There is no lightning-based boss, sadly. Maybe they'll add him in some DLC. But, and I actually would love to see some DLC for this game. I would pay for it too. I think $15 is too cheap for this game. I think they could charge $20 very easily. I think they could probably even charge $25 for this game and get away with it. This game is excellent value. There's a ton of fun to be had here. If you like things like Binding of Isaac and whatnot, this game is just so much fun. It's great aesthetic. It's basically, if they were to make an Avatar: The Last Airbender video game, this is as close as it gets. It's so much fun. And the endless combinations of spells. The police are coming for me. I found out that it's a crime to not be playing this game. I don't know if you can hear the sirens, but yeah. So it's just so much fun. For $15, I really can't recommend it more. And it's great. I really think it's great. You'll get endless of hours of replayability on it. I don't think this game could be put on mobile. Too many buttons, 6 abilities, plus pull up map and stuff like that. It'd be great if you could find a way to put it on mobile, but the 6 abilities part and the moving, and you gotta be pretty fast on some stuff. But it is a super fun game regardless. I would love to actually, that's where this would work wonderfully. I want to see this game on Switch. Oh, it'd be amazing on Switch. So yeah, as you said, we were on the fire tile, now we're on the ice tile. You did see some different types of enemies. General enemies moveset changes with the different tile sets that you're on. But I'm not going to give away any more for this game in itself. I thought it was really unique. I thought it was really fun. It is $15.99 on Steam. It is called Wizard of Legends. I have had endless amounts of fun with this. Thank you for taking your time to watch this first look. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell for notifications for whenever we have more videos coming out. We'll have more first looks coming up soon. You can follow me on Twitter. Of course, you can listen to me rant, rave, whatever. If you'd like to come watch gameplay live, you can do so over at twitch.tv/GUNZGAMES. I'll see you guys later. Thanks. GG.